Hey Rising, welcome to another week of Grows. We're in week 3, and this week is Valentine's week. I don't know if you are doing something special or did something special to celebrate that, but we do have something coming up I want to make sure you all know about. Coming up on Friday, February 25th, we're going to have we're calling 3D Date Night, which is going to kind of segue into the new series we're going to be doing starting on the 27th, Marriage in 3D. And this is kind of a combo event. We're making it kind of a couples night, a chance for you to go out and have dinner. I'm going to be sending questions to you during the night as you're having dinner together to kind of prompt you and get you to think about some stuff as we prepare for our series on marriage. It's also a chance for you, if you have kids, to get out of the house and drop the kids off here as like a parents' night out from 5 to 9. And then after people have dinner, we're going to gather back together for time of fellowship and just a little bit of entertainment and some dessert and just a chance just to kind of be together and talk and mingle. So I think it's going to be a great night. You definitely want to sign up, but it's also a fundraiser for our Mexico mission trip because we have to raise money in order to fund kind of all the building materials for the 2 houses that we're hoping to build in Mexico this summer with our students, with our high school students and college students and some adults. And so all the proceeds are going towards that. So if you want to sign up and donate, that'd be great. But Valentine's is here. It's kind of the week, the month where we celebrate love. And I just think it's a great time. When we talked about earlier, you just talked about some of your favorite romantic comedies and kind of those, just funny ones that just make you laugh. When we talk about romance and love, it's kind of interesting because I think it kind of relates a little bit to what we've been talking about in our series, God's Will for Me, and the idea that it has to be a choice. Love has to be a choice. Nobody wants to go down, see a romantic comedy or a romance movie, and it's like, the groom is standing at the end of the aisle, and then you see the bride come down the aisle, and like Guido is next to her with like a gun to her head saying, "You're going to marry this person." That's not romantic, right? It's got to be choice. It's got to be somebody's free will. It kind of reminds me, I kind of made fun of, I guess it was last week now, my double prom, horrible, bad experience, my buy one, get one free bad prom. And I kind of reference Redeeming Love. If you've seen the movie or the book, it's like, it's kind of tied into the book of Hosea and how Gomer is Hosea's wife and she just keeps kind of leaving him and he has to keep going after her. It's a symbol of God when it comes to Israel and how God just is faithful and she just keeps leaving him over and over and over again. And I kind of joked that was kind of my prom experience, but it was kind of true. I was pursuing this girl, again, I'm just going to call her Gomer, and she just, we went to prom and I thought everything was great. I spent all this money, tried to give her this great night. We were there with all the foreign exchange students, but it was still a good time. We got to the end of the night, took the limo, dropped her off at her house, and it was like, "Good night." And I'm like, okay, I didn't even get a kiss goodnight after all that or anything like that, but okay. And I kind of still had this hope, that she was into me and all this. And then that was Saturday night, and then go to school on Monday. And this is the side of the story I didn't get to share. That's just another story for another day, and today is the day. And this is back in the 80s, okay, so I don't think they do this anymore. But she was, around her neck was a necklace, and there was a ring on it, and it was a guy's ring, and that was kind of thing. Like if you were dating somebody, then you would wear their class ring, and it was not mine. And I'm like, I just took you to prom 2 days ago, and you're wearing it, and it happened to be one of my good friends that she was dating and had his ring around her. I'm like, what? And I was just like, stabbed to the heart, right? Because I liked her, and then she ends up dating the other guy that I knew pretty well. Of course, that didn't pan out, and a few months later, she comes crawling back to me. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I treated you so horribly," and, and we kind of reconciled, and we started dating. It was just like, this happened like my entire senior year, back and forth, until we get to senior prom. And I'm like, I'm just going to try to do this again, try to give her this great night. Some of you guys met Dale. Dale was the new youth pastor at my church my senior year. And so he set up this nice kind of dinner right on the beach. We had this gazebo, Balboa Beach. And so we kind of were walking out to the beach, out to the pier. And then we had this dinner, romantic dinner, candlelight dinner right there. And just, did everything. And by the end of the night, I'm not kidding, we got to the actual dance. And I almost called my dad and said, "Come pick me up, because I just can't be here." She just disappeared. I'm by myself at prom, and she's just running around with her friends and not giving me the time of day, and it just was awful, right? But it was kind of this idea, ironically enough, we broke up after that, and I guess there was some justice because well, this is horrible. I shouldn't say this, but like she just got married like 2 years ago. So I don't think it was an issue with me. It was her issue. But it hurt me. I didn't know that she was gonna, never get married for another 30 years, right? But it was kind of this whole thing where it's like it just hurt, and that's kind of love. Love, it can be painful, right? Because you want and you desire and you wish for this thing to come to fruition, but at the end of the day, it's always a choice. The other person has a choice if they're going to love you or not love you, and that's why I think it's very, very similar when it comes to God's will. When it comes to God's wishes, God's desires, God's best offer for our best life, God's preference for us, where God's like, this is what I want, this is what I want for you, but ultimately, you get to pick. You can say yes to my will, or you can say no to my will. You can say yes to my good, perfect, and pleasing plan for your life, or you can say no. And I think when God gives us that freedom, He gives us that autonomy, is it painful for God when we say, nope, I'm going to go this direction, or I'm going to listen to this voice, or I'm going to go after this pursuit, or I'm going to listen to what the world says on this one? Does God's heart just kind of ache? I think that's kind of what it is. I want to take Valentine's Day and love and compare it to God's will. And so today in your Grove, you're going to kind of unpack this idea. Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? So God's will, like, how does that impact Him when we say no? Because He has to give us this free will. All the way back to Adam and Eve, you're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. Like Adam and Eve, He gave them a choice. He didn't force them to follow His will. But not following God's will led to some not so great stuff, but that wasn't God's will for them. That was their will for them. And so I just kind of think we need to kind of think about God's will, maybe from the perspective of the freedom of choice that we have, even when it comes to love and when it comes to saying yes or saying no to somebody. So I hope this will kind of get you going in the right direction. I hope you'll find this discussion maybe insightful and maybe even challenging when we discuss God's will and when we choose not to follow God's will. So hopefully that gives you enough to start with, and we will check back in with you next week.